we'll do both classification 1 and 2. Now we'll start by defining what is classification. What is classification? What is classification? Classification is a branch of biology that deals with grouping of the organisms according to the similarities of their structures. So it's grouping of the organism according to similarities of their structures. So basically what we do here, we look at the organisms and we look at the structures that these organisms have. Those organisms with similar structures, we put them in one group. For example, those organisms whose body are covered by wool, fur or hair, we put them in one group. So that is basically what classification is. Classification is a grouping of organisms according to similarities of their structures. There is something here we call it taxonomy. What is taxonomy? Taxonomy is the study of classification. Correct? It's the study of classification. It is the study of classification. Now we have to take a classification whereby initially organisms were like the plants. The plants were grouped into 3 categories. The plants were grouped initially. Before coming up with this other classification, initially the plants were grouped into 3. We either have shrubs, herbs, and trees. The other way we could also classify this class is as either annual. Annuals are plants that take 1 year to complete their life cycle. The other option is biannual. Biannual takes how many years? 2. Then beyond 2, we can classify them as perennial. What about the animals? Animals can be classified again into 3 depending on what they feed on. So we have animals, we have the carnivores, and we have the omnivores. So what basically is happening when talking about classification is that we don't classify the organisms based on what they feed on, that we can classify the organisms into 3. No, we are looking at the similarities of the structures. So classification is grouping of the organisms according to the similarities of the structures. So those organisms with similar structures are placed in one group, and those with different are placed in different groups. Now, the study of classification is called taxonomy. The study of classification is called taxonomy. Then we have something we can discuss. We call it binomial nomenclature. What is the binomial nomenclature? The double naming system. Somebody else. What is binomial nomenclature? She is telling us that binomial nomenclature is double naming of organisms. Somebody else with a different idea, yes? Yes, the naming of organisms, giving them the genus and the species. What you are saying is correct. Only that you didn't complete. It is double naming system or giving organism 2 names. You have to go ahead and mention those 2 names. The genus, the species name. So the double naming of the organism using the genus and the species. So you have to mention the genus and the species name, or the generic and the specific name. So you assign the organism two names. It's a double naming of the organism. It's a system of assigning organisms. How many names? Two. You give the organisms two names. You go ahead and mention those two names. That is the genus and the species name. The genus and the species name. Principles. Principles of polynomial language. Number one. Now, I want to question you before we discuss about this principle. Sometimes we split those principles into two. For example, when handwritten, we say when handwritten, underline, separate. Principle number two, when written, you print in italic. That is wrong. You don't split the point. The point is one. That when giving the organisms, the genus, it is handwritten. The genus and the species name are underlined, but when you underline them separately. And when it is printed in italic font. That is one principle. So most of the students, they usually split into two. So number one is that this the genus and the specific names. That is giving the organisms two names. The genus name and the specific names are underlined separately when it is handwritten, and when it is printed, we print using italic font. So when underline separately, when handwritten, and when printed, and when printed, print in italic font. The second principle is that the first name is the genus name and should start with a capital letter. The second name is the specific name or the species name and should start with a small letter. So the first name is genus and should start with capital letter, while the second name is species and should start with small letter. Number three, for the newly discovered organisms, what do? You give a Latin name. So for newly discovered organism, give a Latin name. Pigeon, aloe, new species of aloe found in Kilifi. Eucalyptus can be called aloe Kilifiensis. So what we're saying is, for the newly discovered organisms, for the newly discovered organisms, you are supposed to give the Latin name. So those are the main principles of polynomial nomenclature. Number one, we're saying if the name is handwritten, you're supposed to underline separately, and when it is printed in italic font. Number two, is that the first name is the genus name and should start with a capital letter. The second name is a species name and should start with a small letter. Number three is that for the newly discovered organism, what do? We give a Latin name. Now, when assigning the organism, in this double naming of the organism, we use the Latin language. So we can ask ourselves, why was Latin language, or why is Latin language used when naming the organisms. Reasons why Latin language is used when naming organisms. Now we use the Latin language when naming the organism. Number one, because Latin language is dead, or you can say it is fully developed. It is no longer growing. It is a language that has grown and fully developed. So you can say it is a dead, or it's a language that is fully developed. So it's dead or fully developed. Dead language. Has fully developed. Number two is that it's a universal language. Universal means that it is widely spoken by a number of countries. So you can say it is universal. It's universal. Or you can say spoken in so many countries. So it was spoken in so many countries that it was universal. So Latin language was well known in a number of the countries. And that is why when assigning the organisms, the two names we use the Latin language. We are saying number one is a dead language. We can say that Latin language has fully developed. So it is no longer developing. I know that language like Swahili. Swahili language keeps on developing. But for the Latin language, it has fully developed. It has fully developed. Number two is that it is a universal language. Universal language means that a number of the countries are speaking. Number three is that Latin language does not belong to any country. Number three is that it does not belong to any country. Let me give an example. Let me give this example. Whenever sometimes you can speak a broken Swahili, and probably there are a number of people from different countries. There's somebody who will feel that you are offending because you are speaking a broken Swahili. Which country? Tanzanians. They feel like Swahili is their language. And they don't accept you speak broken Swahili. They will correct you and say, what are you saying? Because they feel like Swahili language is their language and they cannot allow you. But for the Latin language, it does not belong to any country. Nobody will feel like this is our language. And that is why the scientists back then, they use the Latin language to name the organisms. I believe we are together to that point, eh?
Yes.
Yes, this is part of the introductory part of classification 2. So we are combining classification 1 and 2. What is taxonomic unit? We have what you call taxonomic unit. What is the taxonomic unit? This is the unit in which the organisms are grouped in. So this is the unit. It's a unit where the organisms are grouped into from the largest to the smallest. So we can classify the organisms. We can classify the organisms into a certain. We can place the organisms into a certain group. That group in which we place the organism is what we call taxonomic unit. So it is a unit or a group in which the organisms are grouped into, we have the largest and we have the smallest. These taxonomic units are taxonomic unit. We have kingdom. After kingdom, we have the phaylum. Phaylum is the animals. To the plants, we have division. Division is to the plants. After that, class, order, family, genus, and lastly, the species. What do we do? As we move from the species to the kingdom, the number of organisms increases. And what happens when you move down from the kingdom to the species? Similarities? Similarities does what? Reduce. The similarities increases. So when you compare the kingdom and as group family, or you can compare kingdom, class, and family, as you move down, you find that the organisms from the same family have almost closer similarities. As you go to the genus, they are almost the same. So as you go down this one, the similarities increases. But as you move upward, go to the number of the organisms increases, meaning that the kingdom has the largest number of organisms. Now, this takes us to the next part where we will discuss what is a species. What is a species? The smallest unit of, it is the smallest unit, of course, in the taxonomic unit. The species is the smallest unit. But the species have, you can be asked to give the characteristics of the species. Yes? Whereby I didn't get you here. What is it? Naturally interbreed and the same kind. They produce offspring that are viable or fertile. So the characteristics of the species, number one is that they can interbreed naturally. Number two, they produce fertile or you say viable offspring. So the species is the smallest. It's the smallest unit of classification. The smallest unit of classification whereby the members can interbreed naturally. Members can interbreed naturally, whereby the members can interbreed naturally. So in an exam, you can be asked to give the characteristics of the species. The characteristic of the species, one is that they interbreed naturally. Number two, give rise to fertile or viable offspring. You can be told, what is it this is a question here? You can write this question. A donkey and a horse interbreed to give rise to a mule. Right? And horse interbreed to give rise to a mule. Get. Okay? to give rise to a mule. Give rise to a mule. Yet, a donkey and a horse, they don't belong to the same species. Why? Somebody give us the answer. Why is it that a donkey and a horse do not belong to the same species? Yet they can interbreed and give rise to a mule. What are the characteristics of a species? Number one, interbreed naturally. Number two, give rise to a fertile offspring. Give us the answer. I've given you the answer. We have said the answer. What do you think? Yes, the mule is not fertile. The answer is because the mule is infertile. A mule cannot give rise to a young one. And for the organisms to belong to the same species, the offspring should be fertile or should be viable. So a mule is infertile. Just as simple as that. That the answer is that a mule is infertile. It cannot give rise to a young one. So for an organism to belong to the same species, number one, they can interbreed. Of course, they can interbreed naturally, but the offspring is infertile. So there are two characteristics of the species. That is number one, fertile. Number two, fertile offspring. The other one is they can be able to interbreed naturally. They can be able to interbreed naturally. Now, there are 5 major kingdoms. We have the major kingdoms. When writing the kingdom, you are supposed to start with capital letter. So sometimes you are asked these organisms belong to which kingdom. You get it correctly, but you start with a small letter. What will happen? If you are an examiner, somebody starts with a small letter. What do you do? Huh? That is wrong. Yeah, it's not inverted. Inverted means there's something that is missing. So we have the major kingdom starting from the smallest to the complex one. Does that mean kingdom? The first one is kingdom Monera. Second one. There's Pakistan. Give me the examples of the kingdom Monera. Kingdom Monera we have bacteria. Pakistan we have Plasmodium. We have Paramecium. So that's on. Then after kingdom Pakistan, the kingdom then after that we have kingdom fungi. Example of the kingdom fungi? We have yeast. What else? We have mushroom. We have the toad, stool. And then number 4 we have the kingdom fungi, like the maize, beans, and so forth and so on. And lastly, kingdom Mammalia. For example, you have the human being. Now, on these 5 kingdoms, I have a simple question. Where do we place virus? Where do we place virus? Which kingdom do we place virus? Kingdom? What do you think? Cholera. Joyce? Kingdom? Kista? Apa lagi? Yes, the viruses. The most beloved is in fact viruses are sort of in their own. They are like boundaries between living things and non-living things. They cannot something small about the viruses. Let's try something small about the viruses. So the viruses are not in the microbiome. They are on their own. And actually they are said to be at the boundary between the living things and non-living things. So let's try something small about viruses. Between living things and non-living things. So for the viruses, they don't belong to any of these kingdoms. I know probably that word has been ringing in our minds. We think probably bacteria and viruses are the same kingdom. No, they don't even come closer to the kingdom of the They are just at the boundaries between living things and non-living things. Now, we can be asked to give some few characteristics of the viruses. Number one, they are host-bound, or we can just say in simple terms, they cannot be able to exist outside the body of the host. So, viruses cannot be able to exist outside the body of the host. They take a few seconds and then they are dead. So, number one is that they are host-bound, i.e. cannot live outside the body of the host. So they cannot be able to exist and live outside the body of the host. So they are host-bound. Number two is that they multiply by invading living cells. They multiply by invading living cells. So for them to multiply, they have to attack living cells. Number three, they have few cellular content. In fact, their cell consists of only DNA and ATP, and they have very few organelles. So they have few cellular content. I.e. have DNA and ATP and few organelles and few organelles. So they don't have other organelles. They are basically few cellular content. Basically, they have the DNA and ATP. And number four is that they usually attack a specific type of the cells. They attack specific type of cells. So they attack a specific type of the cell. So when the viruses get into the body, they don't attack any type of the cells. They usually attack a specific type of the cells. Now, I want to give an example like the HIV virus. Once it gets into the body, they usually, of course, they attack white blood cells. But within the white blood cells, we have various types of the white blood cells. They usually attack this type of cells. T helper cells. So among the white blood cells, we have what we call T helper cells. So the virus, the HIV virus, usually attack T helper cells. So we have various types of the viruses. When they get into the body, they attack a specific type of the cells. They attack a specific type of the cells. So those are the main characteristics of the viruses. So they can be asked to give the characteristics of the viruses. And note that the viruses do not allow creatures to come to be classified under the kingdom on their own. They are just on their own. They are just their own. And in fact, they are confounded between living things and non-living things. So it can be asked to give the characteristics. We have visited a few of them that they cannot be able to live outside the body of the host. Now, what will happen? I know this is what I was given the last subject when I was teaching. Somebody says that we usually say that HIV and AIDS are transmitted by sharing sharp objects. So what if I cut myself or a person cutting myself using a razor blade and that person is infected? Then that razor blade stays for 1 day, tomorrow you go to a razor blade and then accidentally you cut yourself. Will you be able to contact HIV AIDS? The scenario where a sharp object transmit is, for example, those who are using drugs, they use the same syringe. So, to cut, you inject yourself using the syringe, the needle, and then, after that, what do? Immediately, you will go there with the needle, inject yourself within a short period of time. So the virus is not able to exist. In fact, some says that around 9 or 10 seconds the virus is active. So they cannot be outside the body of the host. They can be there for a few seconds and then they are dead. So if you cut yourself using a sharp object and then somebody uses, even after some time, 2 or 3 minutes, the viruses are dead because they cannot be outside the body of the host. Then they usually multiply by living cells. And then when you look at the cells, the cellular content. They have very few organelles. Basically, lastly, that they usually attack specific type of cells. Now, we have some of the organisms, and we are talking about these organisms. We have some of the organisms that are microscopic, that are too tiny. You can either use a microscope or use for you to see them.